Subscribe to Storylab. Now, let's begin this one. Julian Delaney had spent the last 8 years trying to be normal. After Emma was born, he'd walked away from a life most people didn't know existed. A world where problems disappeared, where governments paid him to make the impossible happen, where his network stretched from intelligence agencies to mercenary outfits to the underworld's most powerful players. He'd been the ghost they called when everything else failed. Now he ran a modest consulting firm in San Diego, lived in a house with a yard, coached Emma's soccer team. The 17-year-old sat across from him at breakfast, scrolling through her phone, complaining about her calculus teacher. She had her mother's dark hair and quick smile. Sarah had died in childbirth, and Emma was all Julian had left of her. "Dad, you're staring again," Emma said without looking up. "Just thinking about college visits next month," Julian lied. He'd been cataloging the 3 men in the sedan that had been parked down the street for 40 minutes. USC, right? Emma's eyes lit up. Marine biology program is supposed to be amazing. Julian nodded, his phone buzzing. A message from Martin Christian, one of his former network contacts who now worked private security in Tijuana. Movement in Baja. Reese family making noise. Thought you should know. Luther Reese. Julian hadn't heard that name in years. The Reese Cartel controlled significant territory in northern Mexico, but they were business-focused, relatively professional. Luther was old school, respected the unwritten rules. His son Ricardo was different. Young, reckless, trying to prove himself. "Dad," Emma touched his hand. "You okay?" He forced a smile. "Fine. Listen, I need you to go straight to Jessica's house after school today. Don't stop anywhere else." "Why? What's going on?" "Probably nothing. Humor me." Emma rolled her eyes but agreed. 20 minutes later, Julian watched her drive away in her Civic, then made 3 phone calls. The sedan left 5 minutes after that. But Julian's instincts, honed by 20 years in the field, were screaming. He activated a protocol he'd hoped never to use. Surveillance on Emma's phone, tracking on her car, alerts from his few remaining active contacts. Then he went to work like it was any other day, because amateurs panicked. Professionals prepared. The consulting firm was legitimate, profitable even. But the basement housed something else entirely. A room that didn't appear on any blueprint, filled with equipment and connections that would make intelligence agencies nervous. Julian hadn't accessed it in 3 years. At 2:47 p.m., Emma's car stopped moving. Not at Jessica's house. An abandoned warehouse in Chula Vista. Julian's blood went cold. He pulled up the car's camera feed. Emma had fought. There'd been 3 of them, professionals. They'd used ether. The feed cut to black. His phone rang. Unknown number. "Mr. Delaney." The voice was young, cocky, with a Tijuana accent. "My name is Ricardo Reese. I have something of yours." Julian said nothing, his mind already working through scenarios, assets, possibilities. "You don't talk much. I heard that about you," Ricardo continued. "You're going to listen, though. 2 years ago, you brokered a deal that cost my family territory. My father told me to let it go, said you were too dangerous to touch. But I think he's getting old, scared. I think you're just a consultant now, playing dad. Where is she?" "Safe. For now. I sent you a video. Watch it, then we'll talk about what you're going to do for me." The call ended. The video arrived seconds later. Julian's hands shook as he opened it. The first time they'd shaken since Sarah died. Emma was tied to a chair, conscious but terrified. A man's hand grabbed her hair, yanked her head back. The camera zoomed on her face as she tried not to cry. "She's got 2 hours," Ricardo's voice on the video. "You give me what I want, or I start with her fingers. My father has 500 soldiers. We own northern Mexico. You're one man playing pretend in California. Think carefully about your next move." The video ended with Emma whimpering as someone pressed a knife to her throat, not cutting, just threatening. Julian sat motionless for exactly 30 seconds, watching his daughter's terrified face frozen on his screen. Then something shifted in him, a switch flipping that hadn't been touched in 8 years. The consultant disappeared. The ghost returned. He walked to the basement, entered the code that only he knew. The room hummed to life. Servers, encrypted communication systems, satellite uplinks. He opened a channel that broadcast on 19 different frequencies simultaneously, a signal that reached from Moscow to Cape Town and Tokyo. "This is Archon," he said, using a designation he'd sworn never to speak again. Full activation. Priority absolute. Within 90 seconds, his screen lit up with responses. Faces appeared in video windows. People he'd worked with, people who owed him, people who feared him. Brad Spencer, former Delta operator, now running a security company in Virginia. Jesus Christ. 8 years. What do you need? Glenn Morrow, NSA liaison who'd used Julian's network to solve problems the government couldn't acknowledge. "I heard you retired." Luther Reese. "I need everything. Locations, security details, communication networks, family tree, financial assets. I need it in 10 minutes. The faces on screen went still. Everyone knew the Reese cartel. "What did he do?" Brad asked. "His son took my daughter." Silence. Then Brad spoke, his voice cold. "I've got 40 contractors. Say the word." "Not yet. Information first. Glenn, I need satellite coverage of Tijuana, real time. I need to see every property Luther owns." I can't authorize that without. You've used my network 17 times. I never ask questions. I'm asking now." Glenn's jaw tightened, then he nodded. "You'll have it in 5 minutes." Julian opened another channel. This one reached into darker places. The world his old life had touched regularly. A face appeared, older now, but still sharp. Anthony Chung ran what looked like import-export in Singapore, but actually controlled one of Asia's most sophisticated intelligence networks. "I thought you were dead," Anthony said. "I need you to send a message through the cartel networks. Everyone who does business in Mexico, everyone who ships through Reese territory, everyone who's ever paid Luther $1. The message is simple. Anyone who helps the Reese family in the next 24 hours becomes my enemy." Anthony whistled low. "That's a lot of players. They'll want to know why. His son kidnapped my daughter. Sent me a torture video." Anthony's expression hardened. "The kid's an idiot. Luther must not know. He will soon. Spread the message. And Anthony? Add this. Anyone who provides me information on Ricardo's location gets consideration for future operations." Done. The next call went to Sammy Cook, who ran deep cover operations for the CIA, but moonlighted in Julian's network when things got complicated. "I need a ghost team in Tijuana. 4 operators, invisible, ready to move in 3 hours." "For what?" "Extraction and cleanup." "How dirty?" "Completely." Sammy nodded. "They'll be in position." Julian's screens filled with data. Glenn's satellite feeds showed 8 properties Luther owned. Brad's intelligence network identified current security deployments. Luther was at his compound in Tijuana's hills, surrounded by 43 armed men. The other locations showed varying levels of activity. Then something else came through. A message from Ray Nolan, a former MI6 operative who now brokered information across Europe and Latin America. "Just heard the broadcast. I'm in Mexico City. I know someone in Luther's inner circle who's unhappy. Lieutenant named Toby Everett. He's American, ex-Army, smart enough to know Ricardo's going to destroy everything Luther built. He might talk." Julian typed back, set up a call. Now, 3 minutes later, Toby Everett's face appeared on screen. Hard-looking man in his 50s, scar across his jaw. "You're Archon," Toby said. "I heard stories. Ricardo Reese has my daughter. I'm going to get her back. Then I'm going to burn his world down. You could be on the right side of this or the wrong side." Toby lit a cigarette, considering. "Luther doesn't know about the kidnapping. Ricardo did it behind his back, used some of his own crew. The old man's been trying to keep Ricardo under control for years, but the kid thinks he's untouchable. Where's Ricardo now? Warehouse in Rosarito. Abandoned fish processing plant. He's got 12 men with him. Thinks he's safe because Daddy's reputation protects him. The girl's alive. He hasn't hurt her yet. He's waiting for you to call back, beg, show weakness. Kid watches too many movies." Julian absorbed this. "What do you want?" "Luther's lost it. Ricardo's going to start a war that kills us all. I want out with my money and no one hunting me. You give me that, I'll give you details on the warehouse. Entrances, guard positions, communication protocols. And I'll tell you something else. What? Ricardo recorded everything. The kidnapping, the torture video, all of it. He wants to use it to make a name for himself. Show he's tougher than Luther. The files are on his personal server. You get those, you have evidence he can't deny. Julian made the calculation. Deal. Send me everything. When this is done, you get clean transport, and I forget we talked. One more thing, Toby said. Luther's having dinner tonight with his top lieutenants at his compound. All 47 of his key people will be in one place. I'm supposed to be there, but I'm suddenly feeling sick. Julian understood immediately. 47 lieutenants. Altogether. He opened another channel, this one to Harold Jacobson, who controlled a mercenary outfit that officially didn't exist. I need a surgical strike in Tijuana. One target, multiple casualties, no civilians. It needs to happen in exactly 90 minutes. What kind of ordnance? Total. I want a message that can't be misunderstood. Harold smiled grimly. Coordinates? Julian sent the data from Toby's intelligence. Luther's compound, the dinner that would gather everyone who mattered in the Reese organization. Then Julian did something he'd only done 3 times in his career. He made a call to Steve Sharp, a man who worked in the shadows of the intelligence community, someone with access to resources even Julian couldn't fully explain. I need a favor, Julian said. A big one. Name it. Every cartel communication network in Mexico. I need a broadcast that goes to everyone simultaneously. Can you do that? Technically? Yes. Legally? God, no. What are you planning? A demonstration. Steve was quiet for a moment. Your daughter? Yes. Then I don't need to know more. You'll have access in 60 minutes. What you do with it is your business. I was never here. Julian checked the time. 4:17 p.m. Ricardo's deadline was 4:47. Emma had been taken 73 minutes ago. He recorded a brief video message, encrypted it, sent it to Steve to deploy once the timing was right. Then he made one final call, this one to someone he'd hoped never to contact again. The face that appeared was older, harder, carrying the weight of things most people couldn't imagine. Lewis Herring, former handler for operations, so black they had no designation. The man who'd recruited Julian 20 years ago. I heard he came back online, Lewis said. About time. I need immediate tactical support. For operators, heavy weapons, medical. Already done. They'll be at the following coordinates in Rosarito at 1900 hours. I'm assuming this is about the situation in Tijuana. You're tracking it? Julian, the whole intelligence community is tracking it. You activated your network. That doesn't happen quietly. Whatever you're planning, you have unofficial support from several governments who'd like to see the Reese cartel weakened. But this conversation never happened. Understood. Lewis leaned closer to the camera. Get your daughter back. Then disappear again. This world doesn't let people go twice. At exactly 5:45 p.m., while Ricardo Reese was checking his phone, expecting Julian to call and beg, Luther Reese was sitting down to dinner with his 47 most trusted lieutenants in his fortified compound. They never finished the first course. The strike was surgical, overwhelming, and broadcast live on every cartel communication channel in Mexico through Steve's access. It lasted 17 seconds. When it ended, Luther Reese and every lieutenant who'd been in that room were dead. The broadcast didn't end. It switched to Julian's pre-recorded message, his face calm, his voice measured. My name is Archon. Ricardo Reese has my daughter. He threatened me. He made a mistake. What you just witnessed is the consequence of that mistake. This message goes to Ricardo Reese directly. You have 2 hours to return my daughter, unharmed, to the following location. If she has a scratch, I will execute your entire bloodline. Your father is dead. His organization is leaderless. You are alone. Consider your next move carefully. The video ended. Every major cartel in Mexico had watched it. Every player in the underworld now knew that someone had just decapitated the Reese cartel in 17 seconds and broadcast it to prove a point. Julian's phone rang 2 minutes later. Ricardo's number. The voice on the other end was shaking. What did you do? What the fuck did you do? I removed the people protecting you, Julian said calmly. Now there's just you, your daughter, and a choice. Bring her to me unharmed, or I could demonstrate what happens when someone hurts what's mine. You kill my father. You killed. And I'll kill everyone who shares your blood if my daughter isn't in my arms in the next hour and 53 minutes. Starting with your mother, your 3 brothers, your uncle in Guadalajara, and working through every cousin and second cousin I can find. I have their locations. I have operators moving into position right now. Test me. Ricardo's breathing was ragged. Ew. They said you were just a consultant. A nobody. I was a father. You made me into something else. Choose, Ricardo. You have 112 minutes. The line went dead. Julian stood, grabbed the go bag he'd prepared, and headed for the door. His phone lit up with messages. Toby confirming Ricardo was panicking. Brad reporting the operators were in position. Glenn providing updated satellite imagery showing men fleeing the warehouse in Rosarito. Sammy's voice came through. We have eyes on the location. Subject is moving the package to a vehicle. Looks like he's complying. Follow but don't engage. I want him to deliver her personally. Julian drove south, crossing the border through a checkpoint where his credentials that shouldn't exist anymore, but apparently still worked, got him through without inspection. His phone showed Emma's location moving north, toward the drop point he'd designated. A message came from Anthony Chung. Every major player in Mexico is distancing themselves from the Reese family. You just shifted the entire power structure in one move. People are scared. Julian didn't care about power structures. He cared about the GPS dot showing his daughter getting closer. At 6:58 p.m., 2 minutes before the deadline, a black SUV pulled into the empty parking lot of a defunct shopping center in San Isidro. Ricardo Reese got out, hands raised, and opened the back door. Emma stumbled out, alive, crying, but walking on her own. Ricardo backed away as she ran toward the light posts where Julian had told him to wait. Julian emerged from the shadows, catching Emma as she collapsed into his arms. She was shaking, terrified but unharmed. He held her, checking her over with hands that had steadied. Dad, she sobbed. Dad, I was so scared I didn't know. You're safe now. I've got you. Over her shoulder, Julian watched Ricardo, standing 50 feet away, surrounded by the operators who'd materialized from the darkness. The young man's face was pale, shocked. I brought her back, Ricardo shouted. Unharmed. Like you said. Julian gently passed Emma to Sammy, who'd appeared at his side. Get her to the medical team. Full workup. Then take her home. Dad, no. Emma grabbed his arm, sensing something. I'll be right behind you. I promise. He kissed her forehead, and she was guided away to a waiting vehicle. Julian walked toward Ricardo, who took a step back. I did what you said. Ricardo's voice cracked. Your daughter is safe. We're done, right? We're done when I say we're done, Julian said quietly. You kidnapped my daughter. You recorded yourself threatening her. You sent me a video of her being terrorized. You thought you could use her to make yourself look strong. I'll leave the country. I'll disappear. I swear, I'll never. Do you know what I really do, Ricardo? Julian stopped 10 feet away. I saw problems. For 20 years, I solved problems that governments couldn't handle. I've orchestrated regime changes, eliminated terrorist networks, dismantled criminal organizations. I retired because I wanted to be a father. You brought me back. Ricardo was crying now. Please. I'm sorry. I didn't know. You knew I brokered deals. You knew I was dangerous. Your father knew. He warned you. You didn't listen because you're arrogant and stupid. Now your father's dead. His organization is destroyed, and you're standing in front of me with nothing. Julian pulled out his phone, showing Ricardo the files Toby had provided, the recordings of the kidnapping, the torture video, everything Ricardo had documented. This goes to the FBI, the DEA, and Mexican authorities in 30 seconds. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison. But I'm going to give you a choice, Ricardo. The same choice you gave me. What choice? Julian nodded to Brad, who stepped forward with a laptop. On screen was live footage from various locations. Ricardo's mother's house, his brother's locations, his uncle's estate. You have 2 hours, Julian said, to turn yourself into the FBI field office in San Diego, or I activate protocols that will dismantle your entire family. Not kill them. I'm not like you. But I will destroy every business, every asset, every protection they have. Your mother will lose her home. Your brothers will lose everything. Your uncle will watch his empire collapse. And you'll watch it happen before you go to prison. You said if I brought her back unharmed. I said I wouldn't execute your bloodline. I didn't say there wouldn't be consequences. You made this choice when you took my daughter. Now live with it. Ricardo fell to his knees. I can't. They'll kill me in prison. Without protection, without money. Should have thought of that before you terrorized a 17-year-old girl. Julian turned to leave, then paused. 119 minutes, Ricardo. FBI office. Don't make me come find you again. Julian walked away, leaving Ricardo sobbing in the parking lot, surrounded by operators who melted back into the shadows. He climbed into the vehicle where Emma waited with Sammy. Is it over? Emma asked, still shaking. It's over. What happened? What did you do? Julian pulled her close. What I had to. What I should have done years ago before I thought I could pretend to be normal. Emma was quiet for a moment. That man, the one who took me. He kept saying his father was powerful, that you were nobody. He was scared at the end, though. Terrified. He should have been. Who are you really, Dad? Julian looked at his daughter, seeing Sarah in her eyes, seeing the innocence he'd fought so hard to preserve. I'm your father. That's all that matters. The rest is just work I used to do. Emma studied him, and he could see her mind working, pieces falling into place. The mysterious basement. The calls he'd taken private. The way people treated him with a respect that went beyond a normal consultant. You're going to have questions, Julian said. I'll answer them. But not tonight. Tonight, we go home, you get checked by a doctor, and we forget this ever happened. Can we forget it? We can try. The FBI took Ricardo Reese into custody at 8:43 p.m., 17 minutes before Julian's deadline. He arrived at the field office shaking, accompanied by a lawyer, and surrendered to charges that included kidnapping, extortion, and assault. The evidence was overwhelming. His own recordings condemned him. The Mexican government, working with the DEA, moved quickly to fill the power vacuum left by the Reese cartel's leadership. Assets were seized, operations disrupted. The organization that Luther had spent 30 years building collapsed in 72 hours. Julian spent 3 days deactivating his network, sending thank yous to the people who'd helped, ensuring everyone who'd been involved understood that Archon was going dark again. Most understood. Some were disappointed to lose access to such a powerful asset. Lewis Herring called on the 4th day. Clean work. Several governments are relieved the Reese situation resolved itself. I'm retired again, Julian said. I know, but they wanted me to pass along that if you ever need anything. I won't. This door is closed. Understood. Be well, Julian, and keep that daughter of yours safe. The call ended. Emma had been quiet since the kidnapping, processing what had happened. The therapist Julian hired said she'd need time, that trauma didn't heal quickly. But she was strong, like her mother. 2 weeks later, they were sitting at breakfast again, the same routine they'd had before everything happened. Emma had barely touched her food, just staring at her coffee. I looked you up, she said finally. Archon. I found things. Stories. Rumors about someone who solved impossible problems. A ghost who could topple governments or save them. People debating if you were real or a myth. Julian said nothing. The dates match, Emma continued. When Mom was pregnant with me, when I was born, that's when the stories stop. Archon disappeared. Emma, were you a bad person? She looked up, meeting his eyes. All those things you did, were you? I did what was necessary to keep the world from falling apart, Julian said carefully. I worked for governments, for organizations that couldn't operate in the light. I stopped terrorists, prevented wars, removed people who needed removing. Was it clean? No. Was it legal? Rarely. But it was necessary. And you stopped when I was born. Your mother made me promise. She said if I wanted to be a father, I had to choose. I couldn't be both. So I chose you. Emma nodded slowly. Until I was taken. Until you were taken. And I remembered that some things matter more than promises. You matter more than anything. What would Mom think about what you did? Julian smiled sadly. She'd be furious. She'd also understand. They sat in silence for a while. Then Emma spoke again, her voice stronger. I don't want to be afraid anymore. I don't want to wonder if someone else is going to come after us because of who you were. They won't. The message was clear. But what if? Emma. Julian reached across the table, taking her hand. I burned that world to the ground to get you back. Everyone who matters knows what happens if they touch you. You're the safest person in California. She squeezed his hand. I believe you, but I need you to teach me. Teach you what? How to protect myself. How to be strong like you. I don't ever want to be helpless again. Julian studied his daughter, seeing the determination in her face, the steel that had always been there, but was now tempered by fire. Okay, he said, but we do it right. Properly. No shortcuts. Emma smiled. The first real smile since the kidnapping. Deal. 3 months later, Julian was teaching Emma basic defensive tactics in their backyard when his phone buzzed. A message from Brad Spencer. There's a situation in Eastern Europe. Something that needs your specific skill set. Interested, Julian deleted the message without responding. Then another came from Glenn Morrow. Congress is asking about increased cartel activity. Your name came up. Nothing official, but thought you should know. Julian turned off his phone. Emma threw a punch that actually had power behind it. He'd been training her in Krav Maga, practical self-defense that didn't waste time on ceremony. She was a quick learner, focused in a way that reminded him of himself at that age. Better, he said. Again, she reset, throwing another combination. This time, he didn't have to correct her form. They trained for another hour, until Emma was sweating and exhausted. As they walked back to the house, she bumped his shoulder affectionately. Thanks, Dad. For what? For coming to get me? For being whatever you are. I'm your father. That's all I need to be. Emma smiled, but then her expression turned serious. What if someone comes after me again? Someone who doesn't know better. Julian stopped walking, looking at his daughter. Then I'll remind them what happens when they make that mistake. But Emma, listen to me. That world I left behind, it's dark, and it's brutal, and it costs pieces of your soul. I don't want that for you. But you taught me to fight. I taught you to defend yourself. That's different from becoming what I was. I did what I did so you wouldn't have to. So you could be normal, go to college, study marine biology, have a life that doesn't involve looking over your shoulder. Is that even possible now? Yes, because everyone who matters knows you're off limits. You're protected by something more powerful than any weapon or organization. Reputation. My reputation. What I did to the Reese cartel spread through channels most people don't know exist. You're safe, Emma. I promise you that. She nodded, but he could see the wheels turning in her head. The kidnapping had changed her, awakened something that might have stayed dormant if Ricardo Reese had chosen differently. That night, after Emma went to bed, Julian sat in his study with a glass of whiskey, thinking about choices and consequences. His phone, which he turned back on, showed 73 messages from various contacts. Situations brewing around the world, problems that needed his specific talents. He deleted them all, but he kept one message from Anthony Chung. The intel community is grateful for how you handled Mexico. Cleaned up a situation that could have become messy for everyone. Consider the favor returned. But if you ever need anything, call. Julian smiled grimly. The favors never balanced, not really. He'd spent 20 years accumulating debts and credits in a ledger that only existed in the memories of very dangerous people. He'd called in those debts to save Emma, and now new obligations had formed. But that was a problem for another day. He looked at the photo on his desk. Emma at 10 years old, gap-toothed smile, holding up a trophy from her soccer team. Innocent, happy, safe. That's what he'd wanted for her. That's what he'd sacrificed his old life to preserve. Ricardo Reese had stolen that innocence, if only for a few hours. And Julian had made him pay for it in ways that would echo through the underworld for years. The question was whether Emma could come back from it. Whether she could return to being a normal teenager with normal dreams, or whether she'd been fundamentally changed by seeing what her father was capable of. Time would tell. For now, she was safe, she was home, and Julian was determined to give her the life Sarah had wanted for her. Everything else, the messages, the favors, the situations brewing in distant countries, could wait. The world would always have problems. But Julian Delaney was retired, and this time he meant it. Probably. The end came for Ricardo Reese in a federal supermax prison 14 months after his conviction. He'd been isolated, kept away from general population for his own protection, but prison had its own hierarchies and networks. Julian learned about it from a brief news article. Ricardo Reese, convicted kidnapper and former cartel member, dead at 26. Authorities were investigating, but had no suspects. Prison officials declined to comment on security measures. Julian read the article twice, then deleted it from his browser history. He felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret, nothing. Ricardo had made his choices and faced the consequences. That was the end of it. Emma never asked about Ricardo. She was busy with college applications, soccer tournaments, and slowly rebuilding the confidence that had been shaken. The nightmares had faded. The fear had diminished. She was healing, and she was different, stronger, more aware of the world's darker corners, but not consumed by them. She'd learned what her father was capable of, what lurked beneath the surface of their quiet life, and she'd chosen to trust it rather than fear it. On the anniversary of her kidnapping, Emma came downstairs to find Julian making breakfast as always. She poured coffee, sat down, and looked at him with clear eyes. "I'm glad you're my dad," she said simply. "I'm glad you're my daughter, even though I know what you are, especially because you know what I am and still see me as your father." Emma smiled. "You know what I realized? Most people go through life never really knowing if they're safe. But I know. I know that if anyone ever threatens me again, the world will burn. That's a weird kind of comfort, but it's comfort. I hope you never need that comfort again." "Me too. But if I do." She met his eyes. "I know you'll be there." Julian nodded. He would be. Always. No matter what it cost. No matter what darkness he had to embrace. Emma was the line he wouldn't let anyone cross. They finished breakfast in comfortable silence, a father and daughter who understood each other completely. The world outside kept turning, full of threats and dangers, and people who made bad choices. But in that kitchen, in that moment, they were safe. They were home. And Julian Delaney, the ghost who'd once been called Archon, was exactly where he needed to be.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.